Alright everyone, we start off today with what might be the biggest news of this current cycle. Yeah, I know there's a lot going on. Youngkin and everything else, CRT certainly falling by the wayside. There's plenty of stuff to talk about in midterm analysis too. Well, we got to talk about Igor Danchenko. The Durham probe has another victim, this is a good thing. The Durham probe is into the Russia hoax, the great lie of the Democrats that Trump was a Russian asset, his campaign was funded by Russians. He hired Russian hookers to pee on the Obama's bed. He's in deep with the Russians, with Putin and people like that. This is a lie. The Steele dossier has now been completely discredited. The FBI was lied to by Igor Danchenko, so it goes beyond just Sussman. Sussman, the Clinton lawyer, he already got nailed. I don't expect that to be too meaningful in the end, with the exception of the fact that it establishes, yeah, the Clintons were involved with the dossier's creation from front to back. Now we find out that the main Russian source for some of the material that Steele was compiling lied constantly about even meeting with Russian groups and travels to Russia. That's a little bit of a red flag because it undermines the entire dossier, therefore undermining everything that happened pertinent to the Russia investigation. The entire thing from front to back was a giant hoax. Now, we're preaching to the choir in one sense when we say this because, of course, most of us already were aware of this years ago. But in the legal sense, while you could establish that to be likely, or you could say, well, it's common sense that it was horseshit because the story never really added up to begin with, now you have more legal teeth to it. Now, first and foremost, before we get into this video, there will be a pinned comment down below, but it won't be links to 4 other video hosting sites. It'll actually be links to the Odyssey page, where last night I debated Nick Fuentes. You should definitely check that out. Odyssey link. There's also a poll there that was put on Twitter. Now, it was initially groyped, but we clanked it up to being almost a dead heat in the Who Won the Debate poll. So, clank away, preferably after you actually watch the debate. Although some people don't have time. I figured I'd make this pitch because the kind of people that are awake and will get notified of a video, 10 hours ago is a totally different group of people from, like, my morning content. So I figured it was fruitful to point that out. Because Nick's people tend to be more on the Discord social side, and so there's the Groyper organization is different from my kind of pure content creation, I think. So there's a little bit of an ingrained advantage, I think, for his argument in any sort of poll like that. So evening the odds a little bit. It's time to clank on. This is a big story, a huge one. In fact, this particular report is, you could call it explosive. This is a double doozy. Because what this tells you is that now you don't have to speculate anymore. The Steele dossier is horseshit, and there's actually a legal probe, one with the capability of prosecuting, that's moving in on things. Now, the big question on people's mind. Between Sussman, the Clinton lawyer, getting indicted for lying to the FBI, and now Igor Danchenko being revealed to have basically conned even Steele and lied repeatedly with regards to even being in Russia on numerous occasions, this points towards the Clintons. They were involved with the manufacture of this dossier. This was a political hit job. Essentially, they started arguably unconstitutional at times witch hunt with a flawed dossier that moved up through the rungs of U.S. law enforcement, of U.S. intel at the FBI and DOJ, etc., and was rubber stamped by the deputy AG himself, Rosenstein, who for plausible deniability purposes can't recall whether he even read it before he signed it. That sort of wiggle room in a legal framework, the average person wouldn't be able to get away with testifying to that in front of Congress, but he's Rosenstein, so he gets off the hook. But will this cause the Clinton crime family to finally face justice for all of their various high crimes and misdemeanors? 99% chance the answer is no. It's just like when Hillary Clinton illegally was storing classified and even top secret materials on an unsecured server in her goddamn bathroom closet. A normal person would not have been off the hook. A normal person would be in jail, would be in prison for doing that. Hillary Clinton is fundamentally untouchable because of the number of connections that the Clintons have throughout the political and fiscal world. They have too many bankster friends, too many congressional friends, etc., too many favors owed, and probably too much blackmail on a lot of people for there to be any real chance the Clintons face justice. Also, there's another thing. Bill is a former president. Hillary, a former presidential contender and first lady. It would look partisan, and so for strategic reasons, I'd hazard a guess that Durham would lean away from actually implicating them directly. If they do, I don't expect they'll get indicted or prosecuted or anything like that. And also, they're old as fuck. When you've got people who are approaching 80 years old and could potentially, Epstein or Vince Foster you, maybe you're more hesitant to bring forth actual charges. But it has destroyed the entire narrative. By the way, this is great for Trump. If he runs in 2024, he can point to all of this stuff that the Durham probe is digging up on how flawed everything was. And it sort of corroborates what he said about the deep state, sort of corroborates the swamp argument, sort of corroborates the witch hunt angle, which he harped on, and much to the great applause of his fans. Whether or not that happens, though, I expect that this will play a role, though, in upcoming elections, regardless of what Trump does. Trump could keel over tomorrow, and the next Republican candidate might end up bringing it up anyway. Hey, you remember the big lie? Remember how the Democrats wasted tens of millions of taxpayer dollars because of the Steele dossier? Well, here's a snippet from the Durham report. You do realize that they attempted to collapse a presidency out of sheer malice. Well, that's the Dem way, and then they can elaborate on that. It isn't the only time that sort of thing has happened. Political witch hunts happen all the time. Remember Lois Lerner in the IRS? Something that Biden is seeking to replicate. Apparently Manchin had the IRS expansion parsed out of the infrastructure bill, so that's no longer on the table. So that's one bit of good news, even if that monstrosity inflation-causing pork barrel bullshit is passed. At least the IRS portion's gone. In this, though, with the Durham probe now going a level beyond Sussman, I think it's significant. I just don't feel like the Clintons will ever face justice. I don't feel like it's in the political winds because of the hyper-partisan nature of politics anyway. Even if they weren't owed a bunch of favors, even if they weren't basically like a JFK-style mafia ring, even then, really, would Durham or elements of the U.S. intel and prosecutorial power, would they really want to make things even more hyper-partisan? Would they really want to lash out at the Clintons, who would inevitably, and all the Dems and the legacy media would do this too, they'd cast it off as a witch hunt. The irony is that they would be complaining about a witch hunt started by an actual witch hunt, which was the which was the bullshit that happened before with the Russia investigation at the highest levels of government. And nobody remembers the Loretta Lynch tarmac meeting with Bubba Bill totally just talking about yoga classes and Chelsea's wedding. And it had nothing to do with saying, hey, by the way, we know what you've got. We've got dirt on you too, so you'd better come out and make sure not to recommend charges. That would be a wise decision, says Bubba Bill. And of course, this is relayed to Comey at the time. Well, no charges are filed. Effectively, the FBI let the Clintons off by for the first time in U.S. history, saying, well, ignorance of the law is an excuse. That's very funny. Imagine if they had extended that same basic courtesy to all of the defendants in the witch hunt regarding the Russia probe. Well, Manafort shouldn't. By the way, Manafort shouldn't have served a day, I suppose, considering that would be tantamount to a fishing expedition based on false intel that involved a literal Russian agent, British intel, and rogue agents now fired within the FBI, as well as a deputy AG signing off after the FISA court puts it forth, and that's a rubber stamping edifice, so that's not pertinent, without even having supposedly read it. I think that he did. I think that he realizes it would be legally a bad thing if he says, oh, yeah, I read that report, and it looked kosher, and it was fine, so I signed it. Well, that's, now I think we know why Rosenstein told us the additional lie, which is that he didn't read it. It's because of this. He knows he could be implicated. Rosenstein's not too big to go down. I just don't think that the Clintons will go down. They'll have some middle. Sussman's probably as far as it goes into them. or some campaign manager or something like that. The Clintons are very meticulous and careful. Do you really think they would leave a paper trail back to themselves? So when I see like Lionel is expecting Durham to try to go after the Clintons, I'm sure that he would want to. I just don't think that he would be capable of doing so. I think that he would end up with black vans parked down his road and eyes looking in his windows, and at some point he'd say enough is a fucking enough, because I don't want to end up like Michael Hastings. That's about all. Peace out.